Hello everyone, my name is Caroline Wolf, and this is my persuasive speech. I've decided to do my persuasive speech on temporary workers. What is it like to be a temporary worker? Well, there are several sides to this story. I'm going to talk to you from the side of a temporary worker. I've been employed as a temporary employee. At the time, I tried to remain optimistic and think of it as an opportunity to gain experience I may not have been able to attain otherwise. It was also a chance to get my foot in the door at a reputable company. All workers, however, stand to gain from the protection of temporary workers. Employers who stand to lower costs by hiring temporary workers and then underpay them or mistreat them. There is a disincentive to hire full-time U.S. workers who are less likely to tolerate such abuse. As a temporary worker, these programs have expanded in the near future. We must move past seeing these individuals as guests and instead see them as workers. If we don't start considering them a permanent part of our workforce, we will continue to see employers exploit and dispose of them. The latest federal data shows that over 2 million people hold temporary jobs, up from a low in mid-2009 of only 1.7 million. As companies seek to meet customer demands without making long-term commitments to worker salary and benefits. These costs are covered by the agency that staffs the temporary workforce. Employers know that the economy has changed. John Osborne, Vice President for Research at Staffing Industry Analyst, which follows temporary staffing agencies. By hiring somebody temporarily, companies have staffing for their peak needs but can let them go when they are no longer needed. Companies stand to benefit from this flexibility, with the economy seesawing in the midst of a recovery that may take as long as 5 years. But it underscores the uncertainty for employees, with a huge number of workers reporting that they are involuntarily employed part-time. Some of the underemployed are likely working for temporary agencies, while others are in informal settings. Many of these employees will work with little or no benefits. Labor experts warn that these hire and fire positions can undermine company morale and long-term prospects. If you are aware that a company had a high turnover rate of temporary workers, would you still consider yourself safe if hired by that company? Others believe that temporary workers don't want to devote their lives and loyalty to a particular employer. Temporary workers are often paid less than full-time workers and are not likely to receive any benefits. Such workers, according to recent studies by the U.S. General Accountability Office report, are less likely to have health insurance and retirement benefits, or to be protected by labor laws. Not providing health insurance means that ailing workers often rely on emergency room treatment, Medicaid, and these treatment scenarios are costly to the American worker, covered by the public, adding to taxpayer burden. A charge, for example, that has been made against giant retailer Walmart. The disappearance of benefits and job security are part of a larger trend in which work has become increasingly informal in recent years. Temporarily, jobs are at the tip of the iceberg and have become casualized. In addition to sharply increasing the number of low-paid Tier 2 workers in U.S. auto factories, the tentative 4-year deal between General Motors and the United Auto Workers sanctions the continued use of thousands of temporary workers who have no job security, health care, or workplace rights, but are nevertheless compelled to pay dues to the UAW. The auto manufacturing company's use of temporary workers, originally hired to fill in for vacationing full-time workers during the summer changeover period, has greatly expanded over the last decade, and the latter now constitute at least 5% of the workforce. The Detroit-based automakers are striving to catch up to the level of the Asian and European-owned factories in the southern U.S. states where 10% or more are temporary workers. The auto companies use these workers to fill in for any job when production is ramped up, only to fire them again when the demands are filled. They cannot accumulate seniority or improve benefits and may have been hired and fired several times over the last few years. Ford believes there is value in employing temporary workers. The Vice President, Marty Malloy, of Labor Affairs for Ford, which employs about 2,000 such workers, told a reporter, Workers provide us with increased flexibility as we address the variable needs of our business and the peaks and valleys of our cyclical industry. With the summer launch of Chevrolet Cruze and the addition of a third shift, about 600 temporary workers were hired to work in the Lordstown Assembly Plant just outside Youngstown, Ohio. GM said it would reevaluate employment numbers in December. You work 6 months and they lay you off. They hire you back for another 6 months and lay you off again. There are hardly any unemployment benefits for your family when you are out of work because they tell the state you weren't looking or working long enough for benefits to be paid. Every time you turn around, workers are getting laid off. I was there every day before starting time, eager and willing to work. I was tired of being pushed out the door every 6 months, and I'm not the only one. In 2007, the UAW accepted a wage reduction for temporary workers from $18 an hour to $14 an hour, in line with the introduction of Tier 2 wages for new hires that are half what traditional workers are paid. It's difficult to raise children on temporary hourly pay, then wait for unemployment to kick in at an even lower rate if you qualify. There's no way to do it. I struggled just to pay my expenses. It cost me $60 to $80 a week in gas just to drive back and forth to work, if I worked a 40-hour week. I would bring home approximately $300 paycheck. My rent was over $500 a month, and then utilities, groceries, living expenses. You don't have anything left. There's no vacations, no birthday presents for your children, very small Christmas. Temps are only guaranteed 20 hours a week. If they have problems in a department, they send the temps home, and sometimes you only get paid for 2 hours that day. In some weeks you can get paid as little as $200 a week, and of course you have to pay gas out of that. I was laid off in 2008 and was recalled as a temporary employee for a lower rate of pay with no benefits by my previous employer. A few months later, my hours were reduced to only 2 days per week. I was unable to refuse the work, as this was the employer responsible for my unemployment compensation, and I would be reported as refusing work, for which would force me to lose any unemployment compensation. I was driving to Lima at the time and driving over 50 miles one way just for this temporary position. I worked as a temporary at Honda for 2 years and was laid off for 30 days after the 2-year assignment. I was guaranteed an interview, but I had to remain off work for 30 days between assignments. Then I was offered another 2-year position. The full-time employees on the same line I was on were making $20+ an hour with great benefits. I decided I was no longer willing to do that. Why should they benefit from my hard work and give me nothing in return in regards to a future with their organization? There need to be laws established to protect the rights of temporary workers. There needs to be a limit to the amount of time that a single company can use a temporary worker without hiring them on full-time. If these employers are able to perform the work as a temporary for that period of time, they deserve to receive the benefits given to full-time employees. They should not be exploited, as they are for short-term stints of employment. I hope you have enjoyed my video. I apologize for not having the 3 adults watch, as I recently have had several surgeries and have been off work, and I live alone. Thank you for the semester. I look forward to seeing you all in the future.